And it turns out that she's an anthropologist and he's a paleontologist. They were like, "Oh, you should come see our fossil remains at some point." So that's
This
gonna
sounds
be
like the beginning of really weird porn.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue our series on dinosaurs with the 1975 film The Land That Time Forgot. This is our episode 290. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, writer of the upcoming Young Captain Nemo Quest for the Nautilus. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, writer of the long-running underground comic series Halloween Man, and winner of the 2018 Best of Austin Award from the Austin Chronicle, Mr. Drew Edwards. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. And finally, also in Denver, as always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. You know, we read the name of your firm, and it makes you sound like a sponsor, doesn't it? It makes this episode, The Land That Time Forgot, is brought to you by Guzman Immigration of Denver. This is a movie where Doug McClure immigrates to a lost continent, and so
that's a stretch, but okay.
Yes, but that's not why we're covering it. We're covering it because
the rise in dinosaur cases that Julia's taking is astronomical over the last few weeks.
Mr. Drew Edwards has brought us into the land that time forgot because he's doing his adventure with Halloween Man called The Valentine's Day That Time Forgot, and we've been doing dinosaur films in honor of that. So here's what this movie's about, real quick, and we'll get our opening thoughts. The Land That Time Forgot is a 1975 British-American fantasy adventure film from Amicus. It's so exciting to me because Amicus are the makers of all those wonderful contemporary mid-century horrors that I love. They are the anti-Hammer because Amicus, whereas Hammer is all like Victorian this and Georgian that, Amicus was basically like lime green curtains and tiles and stuff like that. So I loved Amicus as much as I loved Hammer, but this is Amicus just going big into fantasy adventure. It's based on the Edgar Rice Burroughs novel Land That Time Forgot, written by none other than Michael Moorcock, along with James Cawthorn, directed by Kevin Connor, and it includes Doug McClure, John McEnery, Keith Barron, Susan Penhaligon, Anthony Ainley, and Declan Mulholland. And we're going to talk about it today. So let's get our opening thoughts. Let's go Julia, Tony, then Drew. You can tell us why you have brought us here, sir, and then I'll get us started. Julia, I don't know if you've ever seen The Land That Time Forgot, but what are your opening thoughts?
If I did, I blocked it out. No, there were some things about this film that I enjoyed, and then there were some things that I was just like, oh my gosh. So the oh my gosh stuff is that it takes a long time to get around to being about dinosaurs. It takes a long time to get around to being about anything, really. It's like, what's happening now? There's a lot of going back and forth about who's in charge of this submarine, the people who have boarded it, or the people who were originally in charge. It just depends on who has the guns, and nobody really fights about that. It's just, oh, I've got the guns now, so it's my turn. Oh, okay. And then then the dinosaur effects sometimes are great, and then other times they're just so bad. Like when they're fighting a dinosaur that's attacking them on the ship, and you see them from their perspective. The dinosaur looks awesome, and then you zoom out, and it's this like really floppy puppet that's just kind of being whacked against the ship out, or like the pterodactyl that never flaps its wings. So there's certain things that just don't work, and some things that work great. The fire effects are amazing. I know at least one stunt guy got hurt, but I don't know. I can't believe people didn't die doing the fire effects. Those were incredible. So there's some things that are really neat. Their relationships are, kind of. There's a couple of things that are interesting, but for the most part, I feel like it's not really a character-driven picture. But so I have mixed feelings. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
That's wonderful. All right, Tony, what do you got for us?
I enjoy this movie. I think the first time I saw it was when I was still living in Texas, so late 70s. It was on rerun, but it's one of those where you're young and you're young enough that you don't read TV Guide or anything. So if a dinosaur movie comes on in prime time,
Yeah.
it's like a gift. What is this magic? You know?
Uh-huh.
How does this happen that my favorite things aren't on Saturday mornings? They're at night when boring TV is usually on, when you're young enough. So I remember this and People That Time Forgot coming on, at some point in prime time and really digging it. Watching it years later, and I've seen it a couple times since then. Yeah, the dinosaur effects are all over the place. It would have been nice if they could have done some more stop motion or something, in my opinion. But I think it's a fun adventure. It is. I'm with Julia. I didn't remember there being so much kind of U-boat intrigue. And
Yes.
I don't. I'm not like. I don't think that's as bad. That it's slow in the beginning. But I had forgotten that was a major part of it.
Mhm.
I more remember the parts with the ice, and then I also, for some reason in my head, since I saw them when I was much younger, get this and People That Time Forgot, the sequel.
Yes.
That has a biplane and such. For some reason, they're kind of mixed up in my head. And so I had to remember, oh yeah, it was the sequel that had the plane and such like that. But I think it's a fun adventurous romp with dinosaurs. So
It gets even more confusing because there's actually a third movie in this series that still has Doug McClure, but as a different character. So Doug McClure plays this character twice, and then he comes back for a third movie as yet another person. And that's at its core. Yeah, and it's you, Drew. Go for it.
The third movie is not part of the Caprona. It's an adaptation of another Edgar Rice Burroughs. A different story.
I see.
For whatever reason, they did not do. Well, you know what? I'll save that. I want to
Okay.
talk about this movie. I love this movie. This is a childhood favorite. It has one of my all-time favorite VHS covers with a weirdly aquatic Tyrannosaurus on it. I actually like all the U-boat stuff. That adheres pretty closely to the opening of the book. Like the book does take its time getting to the dinosaur stuff. But this is a reasonably faithful, although greatly shortened adaptation. For a long time, though, it wasn't until I was older and started getting into Edgar Rice Burroughs that I knew that this was based on anything. Like I just loved this movie because it seemed like it was always on TV when I was a kid. And I just loved it. And we'll talk about more about the ending of the movie, but the ending of the movie always just kind of blew my mind as a kid because it's a little bit on the darker side. And I kind of like the dinosaur effects with the puppets. I think they're charming. They're not as nice as the Ray Harryhausen effects we left from our previous episode, but they're fun to look at. And it's just interesting to see in a pre Jurassic Park world how people would go about bringing these animals back to life for the big screen. I don't know, I this movie hits a lot of personal just tropes that I like. I like all the turtlenecks and people dressed in like World War I / early 20th century kind of clothing. And it very much takes place in a universe that I like. And I'm glad that we're talking about it, and I can already kind of tell that everybody's a little rared up, and I think this episode might be a little rowdy. And I think that's awesome because I think that's going to make a better episode. So let's do this.
Okay, I would have nothing really to add to that. I want, before we go into the topics and get started, I just wanted to point out we asked a question last week that you guys got the answer to this week because you were at forgive me if I say this wrong. The
Central Texas Teen Comic-Con.
Central Texas Teen Comic-Con in beautiful Round Rock, Texas, and you found out whether or not people become paleontologists because of movies like the ones that we're talking about. So what happened?
Well, we were in between panels and we were hanging out at our booth, and a family came up and was checking out the covers and posters and everything that I had of the various Halloween Man characters, and I started talking about the character Lucy, who was of course a mad scientist type. And when I said mad scientist or sexy mad scientist, I always call her a sexy mad scientist. The woman said, "Oh, that could be you, honey." And I was like, "Oh, you're a scientist. What kind of scientist are you?" And he said, "I'm a vertebrate paleontologist, and my wife here is an anthropologist." And which ended up, we started talking about, the fact that I'm doing a comic book about dinosaurs, and I actually shared some of the designs with them and talked about what they were doing, and they were very enthusiastic about it. And then Tony, I will let Tony tell this part of the story, but
Oh yeah. So I said, since we had this discussion last week on the podcast, what's your take? Do you become a paleontologist because of dinosaur movies? Is that a thing that happens? And do you become an anthropologist or an archaeologist based on if you really dug Indiana Jones? And the answers were yes. And about Indiana Jones, yes, even though he's a terrible archaeologist and kind of a creeper as far as being a teacher. He's kind of a creep. But yes, those two things are factors for a lot of people of our age group.
Fantastic.
So the answer is yes. We called it.
It's amazing
to get a definitive answer.
If you were to ask me, look, do people go to law school because of the paper chase? The answer is totally yes, right? Because I did that, so at least one, and that just means basically that what you watch on TV can affect the choices you make for the rest of your life. That blows my mind, because it means that if we want people to do stuff, we need to get TV shows about them. That's crazy. Like if we really need people to be
Well, and the same is true for other
Yeah.
decisions like relationships and whether to have kids or all kinds of stuff. Because if that's what your worldview is people, a couple of people and then all the people you see on TV, you're gonna be like, oh, that doesn't look at all like oh, those people have much better marriage than I do, therefore maybe I shouldn't be in my marriage, or
that's
that's how
interesting.
my idea of romance is, or this is what kids. If that's what having kids is like, then I either do or do not want kids.
What you're describing
like
is a
that.
scary
So,
sort of double-edged sword, though, because
yeah.
it can both be like educational or inspirational, but can also be misleading.
Right.
Because you could, I don't know, you could feel like I'm not as wise as that guy, so maybe I shouldn't be a father or whatever. Go ahead,
So
Tony.
again, this bears out that we need to show Gachamon some more because we need science ninjas.
Yes.
We need to show more Gachamon so there are more science ninjas.
Yes.
Somehow.
I agree.
How do we get this?
I think if the president said, if you elect, if whoever the next president said, if you elect me, I will create a science ninja force. First of all, that is not that absurd.
we are looking down Space Force.
Right. So, somebody going, I propose a science ninja force. I think people would be like, yes, let's make this happen. I want to see what their camouflage looks like. I think it will probably be amazing.
I love all the
all
people making fun of the fact that the Space Force people have camo, and they're like, you realize you don't need camo in space, right?
Well, maybe they've got to sneak to the launch pad. It's going to be in Venezuela or something. And you're going to have to
my counter was, you don't know what kind of Stargate stuff that we don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe they know something we don't.
We definitely should talk about the Land That Time
Dinosaurs.
Forgot. So, all right, Land That Time Forgot actually begins as a little kid. I would not have been interested in this. As a grown up, it does keep my attention. It's just kind of funny to me how much of it is a naval thriller. Where it really is truly like a Tom Clancy style naval thriller, but it takes place during World War I. Because what happens is a German U-boat, as happened, like they blew up the Lusitania around this time, and Americans regarded it as a great act of just an atrocity, which it was, because there were men and women and children passengers, but they also had all of this war material, and that's the excuse that the German U-boat here uses to blow up a passenger ship. On that passenger ship is square-jawed Doug McClure and some other people, some British people, and including a biologist, a lovely biologist that he's floating with, and he gets picked up by Mr. Bradley, who is the British officer who has the men that had been running the ship, and that begins this long back and forth over who's going to rule the German submarine that tried to blow them up as soon as they start this effort to take it over. So, without walking it beat by beat, talk to me a little bit about how these scenes are playing. I mean, are these working for you? Was it a shock to suddenly find yourself in basically a Dirk Pitt novel all of a sudden, or what were your thoughts?
I mean, for me, I just thought it was really dumb that okay, somehow, and I'm forgetting now what happens to the initial ship that I guess they gets blown up or something. What happens to the initial ship that Doug McClure was on?
It gets blown up by a German U-boat.
It gets blown up. Okay, so it gets blown up by the German U-boat. So then they are on some like raft. He and his and his female companion, are on a raft, and then they're
on a small lifeboat, and they get picked up by a larger lifeboat, but it's all from the same ship.
Yeah. Right. So, but at some point they find themselves up against the German U-boat, and they board it, and they overcome the the sentry or whoever's outside, and they end up taking over this ship, which I found just ridiculously easy to do. I mean, come on, it's like there was not a lot of having to kill a lot of people or having to fight a lot. It was basically just, oh, we got a gun, and so now we're taking over the ship.
Sneaking around. And basically, like I said, there's a leader of each group. So there's Tyler and Clayton. Tyler is Doug McClure, and then there's Mr. Bradley, who is played Bradley is played by Keith Barron, and he's the leader of the British naval officers, or I guess the officers of the passenger ship.
Yeah.
And then you've got John McEnery as Captain von Schoenwurz, who's the German.
So at one point they do a couple of clever things. Like at one point they managed to launch some torpedoes. Doug McClure manages to launch, he and his comrades, and managed to launch some torpedoes and destroy the German supply ship that's coming up, much to the surprise of the Germans on this ship who are looking at the supply ship. I thought that was kind of brilliant. But other than that, I just kind of felt like all of this back and forth of who's in charge of the ship again stuff was just really silly.
That's what the movie is.
Especially because then they end up being like, you know what, bygones, let's all be friends now that we're in this dinosaur island. And nobody seems to be wanting, like, they're not ever trying to sabotage each other so that they get eaten by, because I would imagine in real life that you would have been like, you blew up my supply ship and you killed some of my men. I'm going to make sure that this dinosaur and these cavemen get you. Not we're like going to work together now because
they do. There is some still quite a bit of tension. That's actually what causes things to go really south towards the end. It's only because the leadership keeps trying to forge that alliance. And I honestly, I think
there's the one guy who's like, no, this is stupid. We shouldn't be getting along with these dudes. Yeah.
Deets.
Honestly, I kind of like that. For the majority of the movie, they're like, okay, we have a bigger problem. The war is meaningless. Let's put our differences aside and try. I think there's something we could all learn from that.
Yeah, it is cool.
When it's all dinosaurs against us, we'll come together as a nation, as a group. and go, you know what, we can put aside our differences. Primaries be damned, let's get rid of I'm tired of these dinosaurs on this plane.
Is this how it works actually in the novel? I haven't read the book. Because
The
here Schoenwurtz goes, the war in Europe isn't going to mean anything to us while we're this far south. So let's just declare a truce until we can put into a neutral port if we survive.
It is more or less how it goes in it. The captain of the Germans is a lot less likable in the book than he is in the movie. Which is fine. Like I said, this movie does more or less follow the plot line of the book. It's been too long since I read it, so it's not fresh enough on my memory. I actually should have reread it just for this because the comparison would have been fun. But this is a pretty good adaptation. Like they've cut a lot of stuff out. Like I think if Julia didn't like the build up to getting to Caprona and this, I think like the book would have really tested her patience because it goes a long time before
That's really funny.
before you get to any dinosaurs in the book.
I mean, he's clearly in love with and here I'm thinking of Burroughs. He's clearly in love with this kind of a manly adventure, right? Where they're taking over ships and trading it back and forth in this sort of bizarre wartime bonhomie. And so how they actually wind up in the magical realm in this case. Once they blow up the German supply ship, at that point the Allies, they're not called the Allies at the time, but the Germans and the American are back in charge of the U-boat, and so they go, we're going to head for North America. Now, I saw this movie twice, and I saw a scene in one version that I didn't see in the other version, which is that once they realize they are way, way far south and they're seeing icebergs, McClure goes to look at the compass, and he sees that it's been tampered with because somebody's put a magnet in the compass. They wind up way far south, and they run into, no joke, a continent that the world has missed. And they've just missed that there's a continent, a subcontinent, I suppose, below South America and above Antarctica. And it's it's basically, just an enormous iceberg. And what I love is that this movie just sort of goes with it. They're like, you know what? Fine. Even though by the time the movie's being made in 1975, it is simply not possible that you could have a subcontinent that nobody's noticed that's just floating in the Atlantic Ocean. It looks like an iceberg from the outside, but as they drift around, they're low on fuel. They are hoping that they're going to find a place to land, and finally, they notice that there is a freshwater river that is pouring out from inside this icy subcontinent, and so that's going to be their way in. Drew, do you want to describe this is actually one of the most tense moments in the whole movie, is how they actually get into the continent of Caprona.
So they're going through in this submarine. It keeps getting tighter and tighter, and they're actually like banging against the rock walls of this underground river. And Doug McClure is looking through a periscope, and when they finally come through out on the other side, a plesiosaur comes up and tries to attack the periscope.
Yes.
And Doug McClure oddly doesn't take too much, like he kind of blinks his eyes and doesn't question that perhaps as much as he should. But no joke, when I was a kid, when the first few times I watched this movie, that scene used to give me the heebie-jeebies, like big time. Like
where
I
it
would
just
have
comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I would have nightmares because of that.
So that whole scene where they're going through the tunnel, I thought was really great because, first of all, this German U-boat is a model. All right, it's just a model that's being slowly pushed along another model, which is a model of a rock tunnel, and so it just keeps like scraping and everything. And it's believable. At these moments, I'm completely believing that I'm watching a submarine nearly get hung up, as it moves through. I was totally impressed with that. Okay, so now they're inside Caprona, and they almost immediately, once they're inside, there's a giant body of water. Basically, it seems to me that the part of Caprona, this continent, you don't really get a good idea of how big it is, but it's big. And most of the time, they spend around one sort of lake area, river, lake thing, the shoreline, and moving around just once, because later on we're going to see that it's much, much, much bigger. But they're just all spending their time around what appears to be a few hundred acres of land, which is all just very cleverly filmed, in Reading, and also in some some sets at Shepperton Studios. They immediately get attacked by. They see a diplodocus, and they immediately get attacked by some dinosaur that just starts attacking the submarine and eating people on top. I guess this is while they're fishing, and that's the first time that we see these puppet dinosaurs. Tony, I know that you were you impressed by the puppet work? Julia, I don't think was all that impressed with it.
Well, not just the
yeah, go
part,
ahead.
like I said, that was where the puppet seems to be attacking the boat, but whenever it's attacking the boat, it's much smaller than the one that they're looking at. I mean, and I think it's just perspective, but it just
Yes.
seems like they easily could have just,
But there are
like,
times when the puppets work great. Like
yeah,
there's a point where the where there are two large, I don't know what kind of dinosaurs they are that are coming towards them that they're shooting at with
yeah.
machine guns.
That's what I'm saying. When it's
Those
just
look
the
totally
dinosaur, or it's
effective.
up. And when it's just a dinosaur, or when the dinosaur is against a model, it
Yeah.
works great. It's only when and they try to have the puppet be in the same frame as a human that it falls apart sometimes.
Yeah.
One of the hilarious. Oh, Tony, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you about the effects work here, like what you were thinking.
It's not awful. It's not. Again, it would be cool if there was some some stop motion, etc. I don't know. I think it's perfectly fine. It's fun. I don't have a big problem with it.
And I think for Amicus this is actually quite good. You look at some of their other movies, like the anthology stuff and everything. Like
Yeah.
this is definitely swinging out for a lot higher. They're aiming for something a little higher with this, because I mean, one, it's a period piece. It's set during World War One, so you have to have a bunch of period naval costumes and stuff like that. Then you have all these dinosaur effects and miniature work, and this is a much bigger scope than we see from Amicus and a lot of their other movies. And I think for the budget they probably were working with, I don't know what the budget on this was, but this is pretty impressive.
I feel like it
agree.
feels quite epic. I mean, yeah. So Wikipedia says that it was somewhere between $250,000 and a little over $1 million, which is not a lot. But I mean, the thing is, whatever they had is on the screen. I
Right.
feel like I'm in a big adventure. We got submarines in the water, we got stuff blowing up, we got fire and volcanoes, and I'm sold. This feels like a big epic to me. So yes, that's true. It feels big. Do I ever believe the dinosaurs are real? I don't know. Not so much the pterodactyls, but I keep going back to what my older daughter always says, which is, if I understand what it is that the filmmakers are trying to convey. There's this thing that my older daughter says, where she goes, as long as I know what the filmmakers are trying to convey, it doesn't matter to me if it's independently realistic, as long as I get what it is that the characters are supposed to think they're looking at, which is a helpful way of looking at it.
Sure.
Well, she's more forgiving, and I would argue maybe more astute than some of the audiences I've been to movies with.
Sure.
But I still get really annoyed when people laugh at quote unquote bad effects, or
Yeah.
effects that aren't super Hollywood high budget. Then that's the joke. haha,
Yeah.
look, they couldn't afford this. It's pretty annoying when it happens, and it
Yeah.
happens more often, I think, lately when I've gone to older movies. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I get it, I guess, if you're not used to that, but a lot of people, it seems to make them feel more superior. Like, I get it. Those are awful effects. I recognize that. It's
Like that's the
like,
point of the exercise.
but
Like that's the
again,
point of
I would
the
rather see effects like this that are really trying something and there's something new at the time
Yeah.
than terrible CG.
Yeah.
At any
Sure.
given moment, I would rather see these hand puppet dinosaurs than CG that's instantly aged and awful.
Well,
That's one of the
when
difficulties with it ages. Go ahead, Drew.
when I was talking about when I was watching this movie, and Jamie was in the room with me when I was watching this, and there was a point coming up, and I actually brought this up. I was like, what if somebody adapted my comic, but like my stipulation was they could only use these kind of special effects, and I think I would be completely okay with that, because
That
I
would be
find
amazing.
I find there to be something very charming about this stuff, because it's tactile,
Yes.
whereas like CGI can be impressive, but it never has charm.
It's hard for it to. Yeah, I agree. It'd be very difficult for it to have charm.
I mean,
Extremely
I've
difficult.
seen some brilliant stuff. And
Yeah.
again, I mean, anybody who's listened to us for any length of time knows that's part of what I do.
Yeah.
So definitely not anti, but also knowing that, bad stuff ages. Practical effects have a charm
Yeah.
that even if they look kind of wonky, they just age as part of that thing, as opposed to CG is instantly like, oh, look, here's the 90s.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
name a point where some new thing comes out. You see that.
Well,
And I
and
don't
once
think
again,
I don't think practical effects do that.
well, as you said though, even with CG, which you're kind of forced to use now.
Sure, of course. I mean,
It,
everything uses it, even like sitcoms, and like everybody's shooting on a lot. The amount of digital wizardry within every show that you watch right now, unbeknownst to you, is
yeah.
pretty impressive.
It's very impressive how entire city streets, you think, well, why didn't they just film the person walking from block to block? And who knows why? Maybe
Or
that's just
or
way
that
too
deep fake
expensive.
thing that you were showing me today, where people
Well, no,
just put
that's the next thing that we're going to be
yeah.
seeing, where people's faces are getting stitched onto the bodies of stuntmen and so forth. But which
Sadly,
they
they're
were
not
doing.
being used to make the Running Man.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
which
actually,
predicted that.
it's funny you mentioned the Running Man, because in T2 back in, what was that, like 91 or something, and in that one already they were digitally inserting the
Sure.
actor's face onto the stunt double. But you're using CG now, and you're doing the best you can, and you run out of money and you run out of time, and sometimes
Sure.
it suffers, and then time itself makes it suffer, so that 8 years from now it's always noticeable. So
it's
yeah.
its own product that time forgot.
Yes, it's yeah, like you could wander around a world of forgotten effects. So there's this long period where they're just dealing with. There are several cool sequences here. There's that initial "Hey, there are dinosaurs," and then we meet what for me is the thing that is the most annoying, which is the cavemen. I don't know what else to call them. The early men. There's like a bunch of different versions of them. None of it makes sense. It's the
Primitive
point
man.
where the movie gets goofiest, because they pick up a caveman named and adopt him, and he explains all kinds of things about
Yeah,
the
for some reason he
cosmology.
understands what oil is and what it can be, that it's
Right.
valuable.
And he explains the cosmology to them, and Ms. Clayton, played by Susan Penhaligon, she is smart enough to be able to convey everything that Caveman wants to explain to them, no matter how bizarre and unlikely, from his grunts and scratches and whatever. But fine. This is like I was like, could we? I don't know what to do here. I would have taken more U-boat stuff if we could have dumped the cavemen. I don't know why this stuff is even here.
Can you
It's not
imagine if
embarrassing.
you
It's not offensive. It's just like it's silly.
Can you imagine if you encountered, like, let's say you encountered caveman, early man, somebody's supposed to lead you around, but instead of finding like the smart version of this, like this, you just get the weirdo.
Yes.
He's like, no, take off all your shoes, and he just likes feet. Like he's just some, but like yeah, it's just random crap. He's
The
a
foot
terrible
fetishist that
person.
time forgot.
Yeah, but like, or just whatever it is. But you accidentally don't meet the best of
Yes.
the tribe, like the smartest or the the most wise. You don't meet the wise man. You kind of meet the kind of shut-in weirdo of the tribe. And
Yeah,
what a different.
The Balu are not sending their best. They're
Yeah.
actually
Oh
going.
no, I wasn't gonna
That guy,
it's just what a different movie or different like experience some traveler would have.
I mean,
if they just
Land of the
used a
Lost
terrible
did this, right?
person.
In Land of the Lost, they had there was an early man.
The Will Ferrell version, just to be clear. That's what you're
Oh,
talking about.
okay, yeah. I can't remember if I saw that one or not. I
Wait,
think I
what?
did.
No, I'm talking about the 1970s one, and he was called Chaka. He was a little hairy dude.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but he's
they
like
do what they did in the
youngster.
Will Ferrell version. They do exactly what Tony is saying.
Oh,
What?
geez.
It's they have a version of Chaka who is an asshole.
Really? Oh
Yeah,
my
I
gosh,
guess I need to
that's
see
cool.
this.
Yeah, I've sat through the Will Ferrell Land of the Lost like twice because I love dinosaur movies.
Oh my
So
goodness.
Is it
I have
any good?
I have a problem. The effects are good.
Oh, well.
The
Yeah,
all right.
anyway.
movie's
Which
not.
would
The
you
movie is
prefer to watch, Mr. Drew? Will Ferrell's Land of the Lost, which I have not seen, or Ringo Starr's Caveman, which I have not seen in like 30 years?
probably Caveman because I also have not seen it in 30 years, so there'd be more curiosity.
I'm
there.
totally curious.
It
I have a
does have a
feeling
lot
it's
of
not a
poop
funny
jokes.
movie. But there's a whole like period of comedies that are like black holes to me. I just remember seeing them when I was like 9, and I'm really curious if any of it lands. And I'm talking about Cavemen and Holy Moses and
I just remember I got my dad to take us to my sister and I to see Caveman.
to see Caveman.
And oh man, I guess I think as a kid I thought it was hilarious because his poop jokes are funny.
Sure.
But I don't think he thought it was humorous. I think like,
Barbara Bach is in that movie. I have not even looked at trailers of that in all this time. So it's
I'll have
possible.
to these again are films we have to rewatch. Anyway, so yeah, we.
I
get to
think
Caveman.
I think the Caveman stuff's important in this because it has it's how they get into all the evolutionary pseudoscience of this
Okay.
island.
Right.
Yeah, I'm totally interested in that. Because tell me a little bit about that because is part of the Balu, who's like somewhere in the middle. Like there's what are the 3 levels of early man that are wandering around there?
So I
Let
don't
me
know
s-
specifically here, but it'd be like Neanderthal and the I can't remember what the other ones are. There's the children.
Well-
My daughter was telling us about it the other day, and I
Well,
forgot.
yeah,
what they were.
but they call them the Balu, the Galu, and the something.
Oh, right.
There's
And the Holy Ghost.
Bandlu, Balu, and Galu in the movie. There's actually
Stolu. That's
Okay.
what it says in the. I'm just looking at the
Yeah.
IMDb. It says Balu, Stolu, and Galu, or Stalu and Galu.
There's
Anyway.
actually more. I hate to discourage you, Jason, but there's actually even more cavemen in the books, including in the 3rd book, winged cavemen.
Oh,
So,
man.
yeah.
I actually kind of wish we'd seen that.
Well,
That's crazy.
yeah, actually, come to think of it, I can actually live with that. That actually sounds truly bizarre. It sounds like Martian stuff. It sounds like early 20th century gonzo science kind of thing. So I can kind of dig if there would be flying cavemen. Because now you're truly in like the world of Barbarella, basically. That's fine. Okay, tell me a little bit about the evolutionary cosmology. The German guy, von Schoenwirth, says it looks like evolution is all over the place on this island. There's all these things living at the same time, yada, yada, yada.
So we should go ahead and destroy it all as soon as we can.
Oh, yeah, no, they shoot everything that
kill
moves.
the crap out of
That's
everything.
the crazy thing is there's no like, hey, let's tie one of these, let's bring one of these things back on the U-boat. They're just like they'll just shoot anything. But what Drew explained to me again, like believes that he could in his lifetime without even dying somehow evolve to be a one of these more human level Galus. Is that right?
Yeah,
Have I-
you can. The creatures on this island can metamorphosize into more evolved things, and the further north you go, there's like an enzyme in the water that, and like the further north you go, the more evolved you
I
become.
see.
Which is why you have a island that has dinosaurs and megafauna and stuff like that all living together, even though that doesn't actually make sense as an ecosystem, which is more thought into. Credit to Edgar Rice Burroughs and then this adaptation. That's more thought than most people who do this sort of lost world fiction try to have, even though it still doesn't hold up to a whole lot of scrutiny. It's interesting to think about.
You only have to sell 2,000 cases of Amway to
Yes.
bump up the Galu. And then if
Yep.
you sell a little bit more to Balu, you can bump
Then
up.
you get a special all expenses paid vacation to that body of water that they all hang out in.
There you
Yeah,
go. See?
that weird big hot cross
Hot
bun
tub
that they all
thingy, yeah.
like hot tub.
The evolutionary hot tub.
Yes. I didn't
To
understand
me-
that at all, and it was disturbing to me because they're like,
me-
"Oh, what's up with the naked women in the big hot tub?" So yeah, Drew, go ahead.
They're evolving and reproducing or something.
To me, there's like horrifying consequences of this for the people who've come in from the outside that it's never explored at all. But okay, so they're already fully evolved modern humans, right?
Sure.
Right.
They're also drinking the water on this island, they try to find fresh water. Like they keep saying like, oh, the water's gross, but presumably they're coming in contact with this water, therefore they are coming in contact with these enzymes and like the stuff in this island that causes things to evolve.
So they're going to evolve as well.
Eventually it stands to reason, even though this is never explored in any of the versions of this, you would eventually evolve. And I
haven't seen the next movie, but that's not explored in the next movie.
That is not. That
would have been interesting.
I think you could do a totally awesome body horror sequel where you have like people becoming like the future human.
Yeah.
Well,
well, it's like Planet of
70s
the Apes, but with humans becoming the uber human.
Right. If the 70s tells us anything, though, that will involve them becoming bald and wearing lots of silver lame.
Right.
True.
No, absolutely.
That's usually how that goes. In
the 50s, Superman, whenever he got zapped by something that turned him into a future human, you knew what that was going to mean. He always got a real big head. Basically, his head would just like get great big, like a beaker.
Bald?
Like physically?
Yeah, bald, big head, silver lame. That's the
absolutely.
That's funny.
And they wear a little. You look basically like the Will Ferrell character in that in Megamind, where he's got a cape and a big head, and that's what Future Man always becomes. Because no matter what, for some reason, mid-century science fiction writers never let go of 19th century phrenology as an understanding of intelligence. So smart people always had bigger brains, bigger skulls, and
like the leader.
Yes, right, exactly, like the leader. Anyway, they do. They have their Chaka. They have, and it's so interesting to think now that Chaka is really patterned after this character, as far as I could work out. So that's.
Lots of stuff is from this and Guanji, you know.
Yes. No, for sure.
I mean, the Savage Land in Marvel Comics is completely ripped off from the land that Time Forgot.
Yeah. You know, especially right. It's the same time, right? It's the mid 70s. Okay, so how do things begin to fall apart? There's a really neat sequence where the American and the Germans and the British, basically Bradley and Schoenwurtz and Tyler as this sort of triumvirate, who've sort of divided up their leadership. They get everything together, and they've discovered oil, and they're refining
Well,
it. They've
yeah,
built
I don't know how they built I get how they built the wooden structures, but how the hell did they build that refinery? Like did they just take apart their submarine and because they have giant metal tubes that would have had to have been forged out of iron somewhere, I don't know, do they have welding somehow? It's amazing.
They should have had an A-team sequence of them with
Yes.
A montage. They
montage
needed
of
a
them building
montage, yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
They
I
have
think it would
almost a
be.
montage, but at that point they've already built the oil refinery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting too if you could do something else where you have a section of the early men who go, wow, maybe we don't want to become these hyper violent guys
Mhm.
with guns, like
Destroy
who
everything.
are destroying everything. I mean,
Mhm.
not to say that you have to have that as a kind of a different movie, but if you had some of them look at their future and go, ooh, yeah, I
Yes.
don't know about that.
Well, especially when they behave, poorly towards one another. Like they start
Exactly.
fighting over their regular World War I stuff. There's one thing that I'm glad for is that there's none of the weird. There's no weird sexism stuff going on. Nobody tries to attack Miss Clayton, which is good. I'm glad the movie doesn't ever go there. Nobody tries to get it on with any of the early man and women who are hanging out in the giant hot tub.
Yeah, this isn't
It's
one of those rapey movies.
it's
Also,
which is thank God, seriously,
Mhm.
oh
honestly.
yeah, absolutely. Also, thank goodness they don't pull a Planet of the Apes and decide, I'm really tired of getting eaten by dinosaurs all the time. Why don't we just take all of their guns?
Yes.
Why don't we raid the new humans and just take all of their weapons?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I could just as easily see that too.
Because we've seen how simple it is for people to get each other's weapons and how the other people immediately just go, okay, whatever you want, whenever they
Yes.
get the weapons.
It is super goofy, by the way, in the movie how much everybody's accustomed to simply going, oh well, we're the prisoners now. It's delightful and almost innocent, and that's all
Well,
pretty
and
cool.
especially it was funny when the captain comes over this loudspeaker of the whatever they call it, the PA of the ship, and he's like, okay, you will now follow whatever this other guy says for now.
Right.
For the time being. We'll be taking back over shortly, don't worry.
If anybody can put suggestions in the suggestion box of how to get out of being taken over, we would really appreciate that. But for now, I guess they got guns.
So this is another movie where, just like in Dawn of the Dead, there's a period in Dawn of the Dead when everything is perfect. Like there's one snapshot moment when everything is rock solid. They have everything they need. They got things going well at the
That's how it stays in
refinery.
this movie. Then that's over.
Well, it's going fine, and then everything falls apart for various reasons.
Various reasons, not least of which is the volcano erupts.
The volcano, yes, but the volcano causes everybody to begin to behave abominably because Dietz decides, no, we need to get out of here now,
And leave those other guys behind.
and then there's fighting about whether or not we will wait for Tyler and Clayton to get back to the ship, and this is when Dietz basically just goes batshit and kills von Schoenbert's.
That's what happens when you're the master from
Right?
Doctor Who secretly.
What? Wait, seriously? Dietz was he really one of the
That's
masters?
It's Anthony Annally, and yeah, he was totally the master. That's the master that I grew up with.
Oh, cool.
When you watched PBS,
Right.
Doctor Who late at night during like the late 80s and early 90s, and you would see an episode with the master on it. This is the guy.
You're kidding.
Neat.
You're kidding. I didn't know that, because the thing is, I always think of Roger Delgado as the master, and I completely forgot that there was that. Oh wow! And if he had had the Van Dyke beard, I would have.
Yeah, he looks very different in this because they've made him look as stereotypically German as possible.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. That's really interesting. And yeah, Dietz is a jerk. He forces them to dive, but the lake is boiling and the U-boat is lost. But I just want to point out in this whole sequence with Doug McClure and Miss Clayton are running to get to shore, to get close to the ship while the ship is taking off and starting to dive and so forth. There is fire everywhere. I mean, everywhere. There are chunks of fire being thrown all around literal human being Doug McClure as he acts out his scenes, and it is like it's mind blowing. I just can't imagine that you would take somebody like, I don't know, Jude Law or whatever, and like throw fire at him.
No, it was amazing. Like I say, the fire, the volcano effects were beyond. I mean, there's really nothing better than that with any CG or anything that they've done now. I was
Yeah.
amazed at how dangerous it all looked and how scary.
I mean, and imagine the heat. Like I'm sure that at various times you might have been at a demonstration where you see a flamethrower being demonstrated, and the technology that is being used here when they do a thing where they rip open the floor and flames shoot up from the floor is the same thing. It's a flamethrower. And it feels like it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy how hot it can get if you're an actor and suddenly a wall of flame shoots up from a machine underneath the stage. That is mind-blowing. And
oh man, I've been in the crowd. I was in the crowd at like an Iron Maiden show, and the pyro I could feel.
Yes.
I can only imagine. You're right.
He's like a yard and a half away from this fire.
Well, and they do them at if you go to Disney, they have these special effects shows that are really awesome.
Oh, that's
There's
right.
fire
Yeah,
there too.
absolutely. And they'll use and they'll also, if they do a war scenario, they'll do the flamethrower thing, and boy, is it hot. And yeah. So and plus they've also got these like pots of cork, which is what the actress says that they're made of cork, that are set on fire, probably covered in some flammable oil, and set on fire and just thrown in chunks, like 10 or 15 of them at a time, landing all around Doug McClure and Susan Penhaligon as they're running. It blows my mind. I mean, look, it's important to remember shit like this is what got Victor Mature killed, and it's amazing to. I just kind of feel like there are risks being taken here that you wouldn't have taken today. But anyway, so that's that's sort of the. I apologize that we've gotten so quickly to the end. I want to get back to the pterodactyls for a second, but this is where we get to the end, because yeah, I mean, Drew, explain to me your existential angst as what happens.
So when I first saw this movie as a kid, of course I expected at least some of the good guy characters to escape this island, and nobody does. And in fact, the hero and heroine are trapped at the end of it. And that always, like, every time I watched this movie as a kid, it kept me up at night, and it was kind of like a primer for watching like a John Carpenter movie with like a downbeat ending. It got me ready for stuff like Prince of Darkness or The Thing, because like it's if you didn't know there was like a sequel or whatever, like it's such a cynical ending, and I think there's something kind of cool
Do you
about
feel like
that.
it's cynical? Like
Yeah.
I'm not why I'm actually just curious about why that
And
particular
I'm actually wondering
choice.
if they're
why
going to be
cynical?
rescued by that fisherman that finds their bottle.
Yeah, I wonder that too.
Well, like okay, so again, it's definitely not a Hollywood ending at
Sure.
all, remotely. And it feels downbeat, like they're rejected by all the cavemen tribes. He says that.
Oh, right.
Oh,
I see your point.
and they look all haggard as they're forced to keep going north. Like they say, like you can't stop going north, and that just feels really, especially to a kid,
hopeless.
that feels
I
just
see your
really
point.
dark.
Yeah.
And while the rest of the movie is kind of a romp, like the ending isn't, and there's something kind of cool about that.
I
And
agree with you completely.
I think there's an important lesson that you can actually take from this is they do really well when they put their differences aside and go, okay, everything that was in the normal world was bullshit for right now. We got to work together to deal with this larger problem.
Yeah.
And then the moment they deviate from that, they start, like things start getting fucked up. And I just think there's something important there, like that you can actually take into your day, even though this is a silly movie about dinosaurs or whatever. But that is something that, like, you can take in your day-to-day life is that, yeah, you're going to be with people that are different than you are. They're maybe from a different background or whatever. But when the shit hits the fan, sometimes you have to work together to achieve a larger goal. And I think there's a good lesson in that.
That's definitely my favorite thing about the movie. And certainly I watched Omega Man as a kid, and that when he, the main character just gets a spear to the chest. And then, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, same guy, shot in the head. So I was kind of accustomed to bummer endings.
Night of the Living Dead.
Well, I didn't watch Night of the Living Dead till I was in high school. I'm talking about like when I was like in middle school, but excellent point. Night of the Living Dead, same thing. But here, I'm such a ridiculous, goofy optimist that to me, I was like, there's a bottle. They'll get.
Yeah, somebody finds the bottle at the beginning of the film.
They're gonna do fine.
So we think that. Yeah, we believe that somebody's going to find them. But yeah, it's a really good point, Drew, that this whole business of that they're like they're on the outside of this community. They're not going to be let in, and they have to keep going north. It is pretty hopeless. I agree.
It is discouraging, but not hopeless because the movie's going out of its way to give us hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. They showed us the crusty seaman at the beginning who finds. Oh, come on.
Oh, come on. You said it.
Come on.
You're the one who said it. I didn't say anything.
Oh, man. I like that Julia is the one. I didn't say anything, and I was like, I'm just going to let it slide. Oh, man.
You can't let. Okay, never mind. I'm going to stop because I was going to keep saying.
Not looking in that. I'm not looking in that thing. Whatever was in there.
I'm the one, Tony, in my house who says that's what she said, like at least once a day.
Oh, that's true. I mean, that's Ray and I both, but.
All right. So, and that's the land that time forgot. The only thing I would mention that we failed to mention, I don't understand that there are pterodactyls, and that's what happens to poor is he sneaks up on Doug McClure more or less by accident. Doug McClure almost shoots him, but luckily doesn't. And then a pterodactyl carries away in his jaws. How do they do that? Forgive me for being stupid. I just really want to know.
Aside from the pterodactyl not flapping its wings, that was a really good effect when it flies off with in its mouth.
How do they do it? Is it on a crane? Is that what's happening? Is it on a helicopter? Like what's keeping this?
And how did they make the cables disappear?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know, Tony?
Does anybody know?
Hiding wires and editing out wires has been something. I mean, we do it all digitally now, but that's been something they've been doing for a long time. It's not outside the realm, but yeah, I mean, it is one of the better effects that in the.
That's pretty cool. So, all right. So that gets us to the end of the land that time forgot, and we will be back. Before we get on to everything else and get the final thoughts, I just want to mention we're going to follow up with the sequel to this movie. So we've got a couple more movies in this series, but we will not leave it without following up with the sequel to this one that sees the amazing Doug McClure return. Before we get our final thoughts, who among us watched the MST3K one? Because Julia and I watched the MST3K version. Tony, you watched the MST3K, and we watched the Voodoo.
Yeah.
Drew, did you happen to watch the MST3K?
No, I don't like. I think we've had this discussion. I used to like MST3K as a kid, but I've grown to really not like it.
So you don't like it. All right, good to know.
Yeah, nothing personal. Again, like what you like, but I just prefer watching the movie as the movie.
Sure. No. Okay. Understood. And Tony, you saw it. All right. Well, that's worth knowing. Okay, so let's get our final thoughts, and then I cannot wait to get to our endorsements for the week. So, final thoughts. I think it was Julia, Tony, Drew, and then I'll go. Julia, is there anything that we've failed to discuss in The Land That Time Forgot?
I wanted to mention I loved the sets. I love the backdrops, and I love the musical score, especially when they reach the island. I think, or when they reach the land. I think that it's kind of a Wizard of Oz type of thing, where you kind of you're in this awful, just gray, depressing, like stormy ocean, and then suddenly they magically go through this like almost a veil, and there's this beautiful place with this gorgeous colors and beautiful water and beautiful mountains, and it's obvious that they're backdrops, but they're beautifully painted backdrops. They're really pretty, and then the sets that they do have, that the practical sets are gorgeous. And then the musical score at that point is really pleasant. I liked it a lot. I thought it was really lovely. So that was something that I appreciated a lot. And then I wish I could think of anything else about the characters, because I think, I appreciate that the female character is supposed to be pretty smart, although I think that she's unrealistically, like, why can she understand this caveman? I don't understand that at all. But she's not, and like you said, nobody's pushing her around or anything, so that's great. I appreciate that they treat the one the one woman character with some respect. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so I definitely feel like I have more positive feelings about this film than negative. There's just a few things where I feel like they could have shortened some parts and maybe done a few things a little differently. But yeah, I think it's pretty fun.
Wonderful. Thank you. Tony, what about you?
Yeah, I really like the movie. I mean, I've liked it since I was a kid. I enjoy the effects. I think it's interesting. I think the World War One setting is also interesting and kind of cool. The overall, there's some not as great parts, but I think overall it's a really, really fun movie. It was really, really cool to revisit it. It made me want to go watch the sequel almost immediately. So if you like, dinosaur adventure romps, and you're a fan of the original novels, or just that kind of people on a mission, war, or kind of juxtaposing our modern world with this kind of dinosaur land, time forgot stuff. I will watch an almost infinite amount of this kind of mashup. So I'm definitely the target audience, and it left a lasting impression on me as a kid as well. I'm always happy if it came on, when I was vacationing, if I was on some UHF channel or cable, when I was hanging out in the summer. So yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it's a really fun movie. Lots of great stuff in there. I think everyone, if you're into dinosaurs, you should see this movie.
Excellent.
Or just adventure, adventure in general.
Drew, what about you?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm the one that brought us here, so I have to say that I love this movie. It's again, it's a childhood favorite. I had a VHS copy of it for years and years and years, and only lost it under duress, which I will not go into now. Um, and this was a fun conversation. Like I said, I like the fact that we were a little rowdy tonight, because I think it's a movie that becomes kind of appropriate because it's a sort of rock'em sock'em macho
Sure.
70s adventure movie. I thank you again for indulging me with this retrospective, because I feel like there's a lot of we're covering a lot of movies that I have always wanted to do on the show in a short period of time.
I'm really glad, because I God knows I've forced you guys to watch things that I just thought it would be fun for everybody to discuss. And Tony and I did a couple of them during just the sit down episodes over Christmas. But so yes, absolutely. Cool, man. And for my part, I really enjoy the Dirk Pitt style adventure that's going on at the beginning of this. So yes, this is good macho fun. This is the kind of thing that it's for the young and the young at heart. I actually really enjoyed this very much. So I'm dying to get people's endorsements, mainly because I got some cool stuff to share myself, and so we'll get to that. But this is your opportunity to talk about whatever you are listening to, reading, buying, shopping, or that you want people to know about that is of your own. You can just throw that in. But I'm curious what you'd recommend to us, because I'm always looking for recommendations to myself. So we went Julia, Tony, Drew, and then me. Julia, what do you have to recommend this week?
Well, the thing that popped into my head just now when you said that is a random thing that my youngest daughter, introduced me to and loves. And that is a show called Brain Games, which used to be a completely different format and is now a game show style format hosted by Keegan-Michael Key. And every week he has a celebrity who comes on and they explore some facet of how people think and and it's all about, how your brain works if you're a female versus a male, how your brain works with music versus not music, or with different kinds of music, how your brain works with just all kinds of things. And every week it's a different person. This last one was Jack Black. It was talking about music, and then they do games, but they teach her all this stuff. And Katerina and I were discussing that really, if you took the lessons of this, you really can create kind of a manual for how to control and manipulate people, because a lot of it is, people will do these things differently based on, if you play this kind of music, they'll taste the chocolate and it'll taste sweet, versus if you're playing this kind of music, when they taste the chocolate and it tastes bitter and it's the same chocolate, stuff like that, where you're just like, what? And then there's this illusionist guy named Lior who just creeps me out. I keep thinking that he's cheating somehow, and Katerina gets mad at me. She's like, no, he is reading micro expressions on people's faces and using suggestion. I'm just like,
Yeah.
no, those are plants. But anyway, it's a really fun show. It's very entertaining. So if you're into kind of like seeing how the mind works, and just kind of game shows that are smart as opposed to some of the sillier ones that are out there, Brain Games is fun.
Thank you.
Family friendly.
That's really wonderful. I appreciate that. Tony, what about you?
Last week I endorsed Bliss. This week I'm gonna endorse BFW. Same director, which I've actually seen this one. This is not a movie for everyone. It's it's for people who like gore, who like. Also, though, it has this fantastic cast of characters. So it's vets versus mutant punks, and it's got Stephen Lang, Fred Williamson, Martin Kove. It's George Wendt is in it. It's pretty awesome. If that sounds like all these classic action actors that you've seen that I grew up with fighting mutant punks, it's pretty great. So I saw it at Fantastic Fest and really dug it then. It does exactly, it's exactly that. Hey, we liked movies, hardcore movies from the 80s, action, action films, action horror, and we're gonna make that, and we're gonna have these characters, later in their life play vets, grizzled vets taking on these punks. I really enjoyed it a lot. Great sound design, great editing. The people who made it were super cool. So if that sounds like what's in your wheelhouse, it's on video on demand.
VFW.
Currently. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, VFW 2019. It's really cool, and I think, and I also, I got to see a Q&A with all these cool actors that I've enjoyed for a long time. Except Fred Williamson wasn't there; he was doing something else. Probably, I think they said he was in Spain, probably with a cigar, which was fitting. But yeah, I really it appealed to all the stuff I liked from the VHS days, just updated. So if that's in your wheelhouse, you need to seek out VFW.
Very cool. Thank you. Drew, what about you?
Well, I would be foolish not to plug my Indiegogo campaign, because it's the reason why we're doing all these dinosaur movies. We are more than halfway to our goal of $2,000 now. We are exactly 63% of the way, but we still really need people's support. We're doing real good here. We have 28 days left, but if you like everything that we are talking about on these last few episodes, this comic book is definitely going to be right up your dinosaur filled alley. and 2 words, vampire caveman. Don't you want to see that? Or even let's say you don't particularly care for comic books. Well, if you just enjoy the show that we do week after week, I have a perk you can get that's just $1. You're just donating $1, and a lot of people are like, well, Drew, what does $1 do? Well, if 50 people give $1, that's $50. If 500 people give $1, that's $500. Dollars add up. So those are actually can be potentially really important. So if you've just enjoyed me at all running my mouth about sci-fi and horror films for the many, many years we've done this show, and you just want to say thank you in a weird way, here's your chance. Go to Indiegogo, look up Halloween Man, the Valentine's Day that time forgot, and just donate $1. Consider it a tip for the time that I have spent entertaining you. The other thing is, I know a lot of people who listen to the show, they also get the comic from Comixology. I am urging you to pre-order it, or now order it. The first chapter is actually out. Order it through the Indiegogo instead. You'll still get your book, same as always. It's it's a very seamless thing, and you're helping us out more than if you're just getting it directly from Comixology. So that's something for you to consider. So that's my soapbox moment. Please go support the Indiegogo. We still need a lot of help. Thank you to everybody that has backed it so far. One last thing. We have a crazy perk on there where you can actually get a cameo in a future Halloween Man comic. And you could even, if you request it, this was talked about in an interview I did recently. If you request it, you can even get killed in a Halloween Man comic book, because apparently some people want that. I don't know why.
Fun fact: when Jason and I first were together, he named a character Julia in one of his books, and then he killed her.
Well, also,
yet
Agent Savaggio seems to not get killed, but there's some pretty horrible maiming throughout Jason's comics.
So then Tony, he goes, I'm going to re-release that book. I'm going to change it a little bit. And then he goes, I said, does Julia still get killed? And he goes, well, no, she doesn't get killed, but her name's not Julia anymore.
So technically, yes, she doesn't.
That's awesome.
Way to go, dude. Man. Way to go, Mr. Lawyer. No, technically, Julia does not get killed.
Oh my God.
The defense rests.
So don't judge my perk based off of this, unless you want to, but you still give me money. I on a non-personal but still dinosaur-filled endorsement. I have been greatly enjoying going back and rewatching the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs cartoon on the Roku channel. It's also, if you prefer, if you're a Spanish speaker, they have it in Spanish on Tubby on Roku Box. But I loved the cartoon as a kid, and I love the Xenozoic Tales comics by Mark Schultz that it's based off of. But I think it's a really solid adaptation of the comic in terms of adapting the aesthetic of the comic book. So if you want to see the best dinosaur cartoon that 1993 had to offer, go watch Cadillacs and Dinosaurs on your Roku box tonight. So that's my other endorsement.
Very cool. And actually I've supported the Indiegogo, and I can't wait to read the Valentine's Day. Honestly, I think it's going to be cool. So I need to get my hands on it. All right. I have a couple endorsements. The first one is something that you, the listener, can be a big help with. We have a survey up for what we should be listening to, like what people should be, if people are interested in us covering on the show. So I've put a link to it on the show page. And just look for it and respond to the survey. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of movies out there, and you can rank them just by dragging them around, putting what you're most interested in up at the top and least interested down at the bottom. And I won't even give away the any spoilers about it so far, other than to say that the idea that I thought would be pretty cool sometime next year, which was stalker movies like Single White Female, dead solid last among the people who have answered the survey so far. So I don't think we're in much danger of doing that one anytime soon, because it is.
Is
not
this your
ranking
way of
very high.
seeding this? Is this your brain game?
Right.
Oh, it's
Yes,
last.
if you love soccer movies, vote now.
Vote
Yes.
now if you want to see a
Vote.
difference.
If you love stalker movies, vote. Tony says vote now for not stalker movies.
Right.
Tony says if you love
wanna-
soccer movies, too bad for you.
More dinosaurs.
I
I'm
will.
sad that
I will-
Kaiju's number 4 right now. That's my
Kaiju
sadness.
is number 4. So if you really want to see more kaiju movies, get in there and vote it up. Yeah.
Can I also say I also do not. I will do stalker movies if that's what wins, but I might be grumpy throughout that retrospective for some reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. All right, very good. I'm excited though, because it's the first time we've done this where we've actually sort of sought in an organized fashion the opinions of the listeners, and I'm super excited about it. The other thing I would mention, there was a video that these guys put up about 2 weeks ago that we put up on our page called "Lord of the Dead." It's a phantasm video about the tall man, and it is awesome. It was awesome. It was just a really cool rap video about the tall man, and it was great. And so I just wanted to draw your attention to that. And finally, I saw Fantasy Island last night, and it's funny. It's it's at least, I would say, it is better than the reboot with Malcolm McDowell. It's the funny thing is the review. I thought it was perfectly decently scary and intriguing, interesting, and I was curious what was going to happen next. What more do you want? Here's news that I have for people who are really into the old Fantasy Island. And I'm really into the old Fantasy Island, but the show never made any sense ever. And and that was part of its charm. The show was basically just the Love Boat, only with some dark turns here and there. But the concepts never made a great deal of sense. This movie doesn't make much sense either. But a lot of times people are reviewing it and going, this isn't really, this makes less sense than the show used to. It's like, no, it didn't. If you go back and look, that show never, we never knew exactly why the island could do what it could do. So I watched it. It is exactly what it appears to be in the trailer, and so it worked for me. So there we go. And that brings us to the end. Thank you, everybody, for coming out for Land That Time Forgot. Next week, we will jaunt way forward to the amazing dinosaurs of Jurassic Park. So I can't wait for that. Everybody have a wonderful week and be excellent to one another, and fill out the survey, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.